Out of all of RE2 Remake's 44 achievements, Minimalist, Frugalist, and a small carbon footprint are the 3 that make the most significant changes to the player's gaming experience. By forcing you to adopt the American healthcare system by not being able to heal, refusing to let you store anything in the item box, and restricting you to only taking 14,000 steps throughout your entire playthrough to offset Taylor Swift's carbon footprint, these 3 achievements are largely regarded as the hardest in the entire game. And today I'm going to get them all at the same time. The Trifecta challenge was originally created to legitimize my unemployed amount of hours on RE4 Remake by finally getting the last 3 achievements I needed all inside a single playthrough, and today we're again seeking out that triple dopamine hit at the cost of depriving ourselves of additional life expectancy. Alongside the Trifecta, we're also going to be getting the achievements for Hardcore Rookie and Leon S. Kennedy that you get for S-ranking the game's hardest difficulty, but I'm also going to enrich the Minimalist achievement with a tablespoon of anthrax by banning any additional pouch upgrades to lock us to just 8 inventory slots for the entire game, and matching it to RE4's Minimalist, which restricts us to using only pistols and defense knives. What's the term for pre-nut regret? Like, when you know you're going to regret doing something, but you just do it anyway.
Pregret.
With the power of the English language behind us, Officer John Capcom arrives at the gas station to find reports of horrors beyond human comprehension. Disturbingly true. Herbal ice cream, you f***ing monster. Ironically though, despite being an enemy of Christ, we do in fact end up needing a green herb cornetto as we immediately fail the Frugalist achievement. Oh Christ, no. But ignoring my S-tier gameplay, Frugalist wasn't actually my biggest concern, and neither was the fact that I'd shot my work colleague in the face and possibly given her brain damage.
Don't shoot! Wait, you're a cop?
As a matter of fact, out of all of the rules for this Trifecta challenge, there was one that was going to be a constant looming threat, and it wasn't the one you might think. The 14,000 steps for a small carbon footprint might seem generous, but not only do steps rack up extremely quickly, but the achievement synergizes so poorly with everything else we're trying to do on this run that likely the only thing we were going to achieve was a small amount of carbon monoxide poisoning. You see, the S and S Plus rank requires us to beat the game in under 2.5 hours, pointing towards speed being the key, but because our rules have banned combat knives from using the London frame rate technique, there's a substantial need for resources to support the Matilda, and with a restrictive 8-slot inventory dictating when we could collect key items, pathing and routing throughout the game was going to instead be a unique blend of efficiency and necessity. And that's not even counting that for Frugalist, we also have to try and avoid taking any damage, even though the damage will eventually find us. But it does make those 14,000 steps look smaller and smaller. Oh, wait, I mean 13,610 steps. Anyways, with our feet now a finite resource, we put them to work, reaching the RPD to enforce the law by ensuring that this door remains unobstructed, and meeting up with Marvin Branner, who had apparently eaten so much Taco Bell that he'd literally dissolved the lining of his stomach.
Yeah.
No, I'm fine, thanks. Leaving Marvin with the meat sweats, we cut our way through the impenetrable lock for this switch known as sellotape to officially signal the start of RPD 1, with 3 minutes on the clock and with already nearly 600 steps taken. Passing through the corridors of the RPD, we collect what handgun ammo and gunpowder we can find, using these wooden boards to block out the rabid members of the homeless community congregating at the window before finding the spade key up on the 3rd floor. Putting speed before safety, we use the spade key to open up the library and the East Wing waiting room before collecting the Matilda's compressor from the safe and finding Claire, who asks us if we saw the 3-ton helicopter kamikaze into the side of the building. No, Claire, I must have missed that. Collecting Capcom's favourite reusable asset, we cut our way through to the offices en route back to the West Wing, which is where I realised just how perfect this routing was going to have to be. Out of RE2's 3 areas, the RPD is undoubtedly the most complex and dynamic part of the game, particularly when it came to early inventory optimization and mid-game quality of life reductions. But it's perhaps the management of story items like the precinct keys that perfectly demonstrate this challenge's chaos theory. So the spade key we collected upstairs opens up 3 doors in the RPD: the library, the East Wing waiting room door, and the West Wing office. But like every other item in the game, it cannot be discarded until all 3 have been opened. Having focused too much on speed, I'd left the West Wing office locked, meaning the key remains stuck inside our inventory until that door is opened, forcing us to abandon this gunpowder in the East office. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but this one gunpowder causes a significant ripple effect to inventory management as we progress to RPD2. Because we don't collect this now, the remaining gunpowders in the station stack unevenly, meaning when we hit the basement, instead of having a free inventory slot from stacking these freshly crafted handgun rounds, we instead have a spare gunpowder that chokes our inventory and forces us into making multiple costly diversions. Instead, the optimal strategy here is to actually take the line medallion out and put it in place after speaking to Marvin. After that, we can then unlock the office door on our way back up, meaning that when we reach the waiting room, we can already discard the key and use the additional space to collect that gunpowder. Safely preventing further resource-induced butterfly effects, we can take the red valve through the newly radicalized West Wing hallways to unlock the supply cupboard, discard the bolt cutters, and collect the detonator. Shutting off Carlos's DIY sauna in the shower room, we collect the battery from the STARS office and avoid the naked, meth-riddled smooth brains hanging from the side of the walls to complete some renovations to the dead body storage cupboard up on the 3rd floor. With the remaining medallions collected, ideally before or after this room, we want to push this bookcase over by one increment, which will help make the library easier for later when it becomes a fully operational pegging chamber.
Oh, fuck.
For now though, we can use the free medallions to open up the creatively named secret room before quickly doubling back to the West office to collect some resources and what I assume is the standard welcome package for all Americans when they start a new job. Despite Marvin's deteriorating microbiome situation, he refuses to come with us, presumably due to this seat's close proximity to the toilet, so leaving him behind to shit himself to death, we enter the secret save room, having spent just under 15 minutes and 2,000 steps just to get here. As part of our hardcore S+ rank aspirations though, you are in fact entitled to free saves, which for this challenge is austerity levels of poverty, but it does mean that saving at the right time was crucial, not just for efficiency, but for overall mental stability. So with that in mind, we do have to take on G1 with the looming threat of replaying the gas station hanging over us, but despite that motivating thought, so long as you can avoid getting stuck on the environment and not get motion sickness, this fight, even pistol only, is exceptionally easy.
Oh, Jesus, that scared the shit out of me.
Collecting the boss arena supplies, we make our way up to the garage, where we find the head of the canine unit, who was eager to show off how well her dogs were trained, as well as a dude named Ben smoking Marlboro 10 FPSs and offering us a copy of the Epstein files if we can get him out of here. Isn't that convenient? Unfortunately, there is no achievement for exposing the Raccoon City paedophile network on standard or hardcore, so we instead have to settle for collecting the square crank to further constipate our inventory and force us to leave the Matilda's stock behind for the return trip, which I'll tell you right now, was a mistake. Thrown back to the gas station to be force-fed more coriander-flavoured ice cream 25 minutes later, and this time we make the impulsive decision to collect the Matilda's stock to ensure that the good boys in here got the treats they deserved. That is, if the treats were enforced euthanasia. Whoa! But this decision loses us a pivotal inventory slot, derailing our previously planned route and forcing us to make a lengthy detour to insert the first electrical unit back in the prison to free up space for the diamond key inside the morgue. The 427-step penalty here felt painful, but with the power now restored, we look to make some savings by detouring to the shooting range to unlock the first of the 2 diamond key doors, which would now allow us to discard it as soon as we reach the linen room. Collecting the fuse, we can open the shutters to reunite Elliot with his legs before using the red crank to open the shutters to the east stairway, releasing another inventory slot, but unfortunately still not being enough to take the large cog with us, something we'll need to collect in a dangerous return trip later. Instead, we incur a generational aura debt by descending this ladder like it was my first day on Earth.
Oh, Sandra. Dumb bitch.
But the blow to our pride was somewhat softened by finally reaching the janitor's closet, where we can find the club key and, I can say with great relief, the official point of our first hardcore save. Now, you may think this is an odd place to save. I mean, who saves in the janitor's closet? Well, nothing quite ruins my vibe or the challenge more than the arrival of weaponized vitamin D deficiency wearing a fedora and with a severe anger management issue. Mr. X for this particular challenge is the most of my concerns and a painful factor we'd now be forced to consider for the foreseeable future.
Oh, great.
With his patrols around the precinct being random, he can show up at any time, either forcing us to abandon whatever we were doing, make costly diversions, or even on the rare occasion, actually try to flat out kill me in real life.
Oh my
The overarching prognosis is Mr. X bad, leaving RPD good, so the plan was to exit the police station by blitzkrieging the story, sprinting over to the other side of the map to immediately lose our stalker over at the library so we can discard the diamond key without any interruptions.
Oh, fuck.
And collect the 2 armory keypads to access some additional resources downstairs. A significant reduction to cortisol production for our trip to the records room can be achieved by aggravating the licker in the hall, leaving and then returning. He simply refuses to put up with this level of noise pollution and evicts himself to the adjoining corridor, leaving us to retrieve the jack handle in peace and use it to lower the library bookcases, which then allows me to be simultaneously lowered through the floor.
What the fuck?
See, this is the kind of shit I'm talking about. On our 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 8th, 50th attempt.
Oh, shit.
I'd come to the conclusion that when intellectuals say that books are our best weapons, I'm assuming for the RPD's library they meant that all the books are Mein Kampf and the weapon is a CBT machine set up in the corner and set to maximum.
What is that bastard doing?
Eventually, I resigned myself to accepting that after retrieving the yellow jack, our best option is to pull Mr. X over to the east wing, which allows us to loop back to the library via the 2nd floor to complete the bridge construction in peace, and finally reach the 3rd floor's clock tower, where we can collect the large cog from the storage room and...
Oh my god. Oh, Jesus Christ. Let's never do that again. Oh my god.
Calmly entering the safe harbour of the clock tower, we conduct some inventory gymnastics to irreversibly damage a Grade 2 listed building and collect the 2nd electrical switch and our 1st large gunpowder. This bad boy can fit so many handgun rounds, but for maximum ROI, we're going to need to find another one to combine it with, which unfortunately isn't going to be until much later in the sewers. Leaving the clock tower with another inventory dependent to care for, 42 minutes on the clock, 6,000 steps taken, and possible cardiac arrest in progress.
Okay then.
We passed Marvin arising out of his couch that was now made out of 90% of his own internal fluids en route back to the basement, where we can restore power to the prison and collect Ben's old parking ticket. Our actions here do unfortunately release the entirety of Raccoon City's sex offender registry, which not only presented a threat to the remaining children of the city, but also to our current progress. Having made meticulous preparations for this jailbreak, however, killing this zombie on the floor prevents him from crawling around during our escape, and by luring Mr. X just a little bit further back into the prison, we buy ourselves plenty of space and time to defensively stab our way out of here and into the garage, where the more I got to know Ada, the more I'm starting to think that she's mentally insane. Not only does she decide that the best way to save my life is through vehicular homicide, but she then threatens to kill a child John Connor style just because she looked a little out of date. Explaining to Ada that willingly taking medication or vaccines in Raccoon City was the medical equivalent of trusting Harold Shipman with your Uber Eats delivery, we use our police skills to defuse this sensitive situation and allow Kendo to tuck his daughter back into bed. Before arriving down in the sewers, where we get more meth-induced input from Ada, who claims that a 40-year-old dispenser of the sauce is more dangerous than a 40-foot modern-day dinosaur. Yeah, okay, what's next, Ada? Annette's more dangerous than getting shot?
Didn't expect that from a scientist.
Oh.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
So apparently it turns out the upper limit of the Annette danger scale is in fact getting shot by Annette. So now playing as Ada, she applies critical first aid to Leon in the form of draping a homeless person's raincoat over him as she chases female Birkin down into the sewers, attempting to give her skin cancer with her microwave gun, but only being able to successfully recover tetanus directly into her leg. As Leon wakes up still shot thanks to the alternative medicinal practices of Primark rainwear, we begin our exploration of the sewers, with time looking healthy, but with our remaining steps looking more like Ben's head. Tight. However, as we've already touched on, the most footprint-intensive part of the game was now over, with the sewers and the lab comparatively being much more linear. Sliding down through a water slide made of literal human diarrhea, we find the monitor room where Ada is bleeding out behind a door that I can only assume was installed by someone who was actively smoking opium. Sewer management's HR policy was clearly focused on illness and danger, as if you have an accident here, you're trapped between a literal man-made black hole and a door that's locked because Barry took the bishop plug home last night by accident. So in the quest for maintainable safety standards, we first collect the T-valve and use it to open 2 of its 4 doors in our mission to eventually discard it. Amongst the raw sewage, we avoid being swallowed whole by G-virus-infected fleshlights and reach the upper waterway, which we can clear out and use the sewer admin key to unlock both doors and gain a boost to our ammo supplies. Unfortunately, once inside the workers' break room, we now have to sacrifice a non-inconsequential amount of steps in our attempts to refund a critical inventory space. To discard the T-valve, we have to unlock the final door it's used for, which unfortunately for us is all the way back under the goddess statue where we first left Marvin. Whilst this is technically a non-negotiable piece of backtracking, the 188 steps we have to spend to get here were costly, and with our chances of success reducing quite literally with every step we made, that margin continued to get narrower. With the T-valve now discardable and the rook plug collected, making it to G2 or being forcibly sent back to the janitor's closet now rested on making it through the nesting grounds. Inside the physical manifestation of what it was like to sort our politics by controversial, there was potential for a lot to go wrong here. But the added layer of pressure doesn't stop us from slipping through to collect the king and queen plugs before making the successful return journey on our first attempt, finally securing our progress with a second save of the run. Oh shit. It was truly one of the saddest moments in Resident Evil history, but suppressing the knee-jerk reaction that was kidnapping this man from the sewers and giving him the law-abiding citizen treatment, I realized that just because this man can't let go of that insane bald patch doesn't mean that I can't let go of this very unfortunate situation. So I committed to what would largely be considered the medicated response to this incident, which was to just replay the game, taking us another hour and a half to get back to the diarrhea slip and slide, where after replaying the sewers for a second time, completing another horrifyingly tense return leg through the nesting grounds and passing on my blistering hatred to this man for making me do all of that again, for nothing, we can finally return to the monitor room to remove any looming pressure of having to smell the janitor's closet again with save number 2, but now a new kind of pressure was emerging. Fast approaching our last 3,000 steps, quite possibly the last thing we needed was a boss fight. With ammo needing to be saved for G3 and the Super Tyrant, we'd need to use the container to knock G2 off the scaffolding, but to also retain our current health levels, the trade-off was that this was going to require a substantial investment of steps. Initially, my frustration was that I hate this fight, and I take being thrown off the map as an improvement to my situation, but largely this was because I'd not spent any time really learning this fight. With Frugalist now active, I was forced to finally set some time aside to properly understand G2, and after an hour, Jesus Christ, this shit is easy. It appears that like most other ultimate life forms, G2's Death Star exhaust port flaw is that they really don't like people standing behind them. If you can position yourself behind G2's back and maintain this steady pace to the rhythm of Staying Alive by the Bee Gees, then he will consistently loop around a 180 swipe attack to try and hit you. When chained together, we keep him permanently in this loop, leaving strategically to start up the container battering ram, which after the cutscene finishes, if you restart the crane and immediately move round and wait for this visual cue, the loop starts all over again, trapping G2 in a permanent state of movement purgatory. And whilst this takes some time to perfect,
yeah, okay then, what the fuck?
G2 is finally sent to the same place where health and safety go to die. Surprised that Ada hadn't died from sepsis, we both walk over to the tram and head down to Umbrella's secret lab below the city, where it was clear that this one was going to come down to the wire. Leaving the tram after receiving potentially unwanted sexual advances from a work colleague, we enter Nest, which luckily for us was even more linear than the sewers. All you have to do is collect the level 2 wristband, get a hernia from the cafeteria,
Oh my god!
connect the north wing up to the east wing to reach the greenhouse and collect the dispersal cartridge. Oh fuck. Unfortunately, the abundance of handgun ammo forces us to waste precious steps combining this large gunpowder in the drug testing lab, but with the cartridge now collected, we focus on not becoming the patty to this sentient vegetarian burger as we work on clearing the lounge downstairs of all the comatose lab workers, so we can return with the signal modulator and walk around the liquors with at least 50% confidence that this was going to be fine. Oh my god! Cooling off the plant plutonium so we can complete a photosynthetic genocide upstairs, we can now retrieve the level 4 chip and pray, largely for my own sanity, that we could escape the clutches of Mr. X and the Ivies hunting us down. Oh, well, that was anticlimactic. Shame this wasn't. Oh, not again. Rock Bottom, it turns out, has a layer underneath it, which is where this guy lives, who'd kindly made the pilgrimage all the way up to the 3rd floor to completely ruin my day. Sent back to the sewers like we'd just breached parole, we spend 30 minutes recovering our lost progress before collecting the large gunpowder from this desk and proceeding to clear every corner in the lab like I was playing Ready or Not. But this time we reached the central core safely, and with access to the West Wing, progress was officially secure as we do some quick signal modulating, receive testicular cancer from high-intensity UV rays, and find Birkin's stockpile of Gamer Girl bathwater before settling down to complete that final, coveted save of the challenge. Grateful that we didn't have to return to the level that was made predominantly from human feces again, our focus could now shift to how we handle G3. There's so many questions here, like, did we even have enough remaining steps for this? How do we avoid taking damage? And is there a domestic abuse charge hidden somewhere in amongst all of this? Well, that would be something for the police to investigate, but for us, as you're aware by now, I won't say no to an opportunity to create some insanely over-convoluted strategy to get me out of a mess that I'm entirely responsible for. But with G3, it almost felt too easy. Looking over the arena, it's split into 6 quadrants, each of which consist of a T-like shape at the top of their entranceway. Once you've put dirt individually into each of Birkin's 3 eyes, you can actually just position yourself in the underside of any of the T-shapes in the arena and quick turn around the corners the moment G3 arrives. His turning circle is way too large to catch us, and even if he did, quick turning around this corner puts the environment between us and his attack, essentially blocking any damage that could reach us. Moving over to the opposite quadrant, we simply repeat this step indefinitely, where apart from occasionally melting my eyeballs, the strat works perfectly, beating G3 without taking a single hit. The damage, however, to a small carbon footprint was irreversible. With just 359 steps remaining, we risked finishing the challenge with a medium carbon footprint instead. Leaving Annette with the promise of thoughts and prayers, we make it to the emergency exit, where Ada insists on taking the shortcut to the ground floor despite the lift being fully operational. But from here on out, our movement through the final stretch of the game would need to be perfect. Oh my god! Every single step we took left me wondering just how close we were to reaching that 14k threshold. But in our search for the exit, we unfortunately gain a passenger in the form of our favourite leather-bound concussion generator. If there was ever a time to deliver an absolutely perfect performance, it was now. Preferably not like that. Making what was categorically the worst possible start to this fight, somehow we were still managing to make it work. Mr. X's fight pattern is largely predictable, and with him being right-handed, waiting for the triple swipe attack allows us to just slip along his left-hand side like we were covered in olive oil as we look to repeat the cycle again. Any pistol ammo we had left went into trying to induce Mr. X with chronic heart failure, as each stagger we can cause will reduce the amount of time we have to wait for the rocket launcher to arrive. The odds were certainly against us. It was either hold our nerve or die. And return back here in about 10 minutes.
Where did this thing come from?
somehow surviving the relentless attempts to illegally breach the sanctity of our virginity, we managed to survive the entire fight with just a singular health point, and with Mr. X turned into a cup holder and one more spike in Raccoon City's casualty figures, we reach the train and meet up with Claire again, who I did think should be the last person in charge of a random child, but orphaned kids aside, it was time to view the Trifecta's results. With the S+ rank confirmed, disregarding the fact that I just had every internal organ ruptured, Frugalist did still remain intact. The item box had remained sealed, and the Matilda our preferred weapon of choice to keep both versions of our Minimalist achievement alive. But now, it was time to reveal the biggest challenge of the free, the achievement that had left me worried from the very beginning. How many steps had it taken to beat the RE2 Remake Trifecta? Experts claim that 14,000 steps a day should, amongst other health benefits, significantly reduce the risk of premature death, but at this moment in time, I have never felt more ill. With no carbon footprint November in shambles, you can rest assured that I tried multiple times to see if those 65 steps could be saved, but somehow, every time, I just managed to make it worse. Conducting a post-challenge inquiry into how this could happen, it turns out there were some pretty depressing findings. Challenge running in my unmedicated state had left my fingers with zero restraint when it came to spamming WASD as we impatiently waited for things like the lift, which you'll be pleased to know results in a metric ton of steps being added. In fact, anytime Leon's foot moves even so much as a microspasm, the game counts this as a step towards carbon footprint, a piece of information that it turns out highlighted that stair skating and quick turning, often used by speedrunners for increased movement efficiency, drastically increases your step count, sometimes artificially inflating it by as much as 100% when compared to just walking normally. The margin of error was always going to be thin, but on review, it looked to be one that I had squandered. So, can you beat RE2 Remake's Trifecta challenge? No, you can't. On your first attempt. Just like that guy from One Man, One Jar probably thought at the time, I was in too deep now. I needed to see this through to the end. Now armed with significant experience and knowledge to draw on, I felt as though I could make vast improvements to my run and significantly reduce that 65-step overspend. To start with, my movement was drastically overhauled and improved. Reducing time spent running into walls and removing stair skating and quick turning would help to accumulate savings across the entire run, but even little changes such as aiming to stop moving instead of releasing the movement keys prevent us from incurring another 2 to 3 steps as Leon comes to a gradual stop. Outside of refining our movement, we also made improvements to our pathing. To start with, we leave the Matilda stock behind in the garage, making enough room to take the electrical component with us into the RPD to eliminate the prison backtrack in its entirety. Completely abandoning the armory subplot, we negate any return to the West Wing's floors for the portable safes and instead immediately unlock the interview room with the club key to not only save steps but also discard the key immediately after opening the records room. Inside the sewers, we collect the King and Queen plugs first, improving the routing for the sewer key and helping to facilitate a quicker return to the monitor room with the Rook plug. The more efficient management of our inventory meant we entered the lab with less handgun ammo, giving us a spare slot that could store the dispersal cartridge instead of having to make the additional trip to the testing lab. Inside G3's arena, we try to output as much damage as possible to limit the number of cycles we have to make, and even though we take a hit from Mr. X seconds before the end of the fight, both bosses were beaten as efficiently as I could have ever done. Our second attempt had been more or less perfect. With an improved S+ rank PB and all other achievements still successfully met, in my opinion, there were no more savings that I could have made. If this is to be it, to be Trifecta glory, then it would need to be now. Whilst I breathed a sigh of relief, I won't lie, I didn't think it was going to be this close. 136 steps is basically just one trip to the milk and cigarette shop, but even if you had just one step left, it didn't matter. For the second time, can you beat RE2 Remake on hardcore without healing, without using the item box, only using pistols and defense knives, without inventory pouches with an S+ rank, and, most importantly, without taking more than 14,000 steps? Yes, you can, but take it from me, it is not worth it.